Sue signals me to stop, and I pop my head up and I'm ready to say, okay, guys, so what's going on? I look up in front of me and the swim ladder's down and we're at the stern of the boat. And Sue goes, get on the boat. There's a shark.
Oh, Welcome to the Ultraswimming podcast. This is episode 7. I'm your co-host, Evan Morrison. Today we'll be doing a deep dive with my fellow co-host, Jessica Kieras, on a swim she recently completed about 3 weeks ago in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of St. Petersburg and Clearwater, Florida. So back in episode 2, as you may recall, we covered various aspects of doing self-organized ultra swims. That is solo swims where you're not relying on some external organization to arrange the swim for you, connect you with boat pilots and provide observers and ratify it. You're doing everything yourself. You're coming up with a route, you're finding a pilot, you're recruiting your crew and observers and getting everything and everyone together on the same day to make it happen. So you can think of today's episode as like a real world practical extension of that discussion. And we'll find out how Jess planned and organized this swim, how it went, and what she learned. Jess, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to telling you guys about what happened and what it was like.
Okay, so how did you come up with the idea to do this swim in the first place? What was the motivation? What were you looking to do, and why this specific place?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things about these self-organized swims is you can really customize a swim. So when you're doing Ocean Sevens or something like that, you're going to take the spot that you get when your captain calls you and offers you a spot. You're going to do the swims that are on that list. They're going to have the challenges that come with those specific swims at the specific time of year that you're doing them on the specific day that you get, because there's lots of other people wanting to do those swims. With a self-organized swim, and kind of where I'm at with swimming right now is I'm kind of going, all right, where do I want to challenge myself? Like, where are my weak areas? Where do I need more practice? Where do I want to grow? What sorts of challenges do I want to face? And so I can pick a swim in a location that customizes the type of suffering I want to do instead of choosing suffering somebody else wants to do. So I'm kind of tired of suffering from being cold. So I'm taking a break from that. So I chose a location where the water temperature, and a time of year where the water temperature would be in the low to mid 70s. And that it would be in the low to mid 70s by talking with Paul Valetudo, also known as Paulie V, local legend and marathon swimmer. He was kind of like, okay, this is when it's going to likely be in the low to mid 70s. And also I learned that the weather is more stable in April on the Florida coast or Florida Gulf Coast. So I was like, this is perfect. I will do it in April.
You picked a time that it was right around the same time that the Tampa Bay Marathon swim used to be, back when that was happening. This is a really important annual swim between like 2006 and maybe up until right before COVID. It's like where a lot of marathon swimmers went to kind of test themselves earlier in the season. And so this was like the first major marathon swim I did was the Tampa Bay Marathon swim. And it was usually like mid to late April, which was just a great time of year. And, most Americans are coming from a climate where they can't swim year round. And at the time I lived in Chicago, and it was just so awesome to get down to Tampa in April and like have a nice warm swim. I mean, not too warm, but warm enough that you weren't really thinking about getting cold, I guess.
Yeah, that was what I was looking for. I was hoping to do some sort of longer swim, like in the 24 plus hour range, because that's what I'm really interested in challenging myself on right now. And my best is 29 hours and some number of minutes. And so I was kind of hoping to get a personal record. And I had asked for the boat to be willing to or able to stay on the water until that evening. And so like I was thinking like, yeah, 24 to 36 this time. So that was like a personal goal that I had. And so I found a spot where I thought I could probably challenge myself in that particular type of way.
So you kind of swam south to north, swimming up past Clearwater, and then you finished at Honeymoon Island State Park. Is that right?
So originally we were going to start at Paso Grill Beach, where a lot of the local swimmers like to go for their, their regular open water swims in that area. The beach is like really pretty. There's all kinds of interesting stuff. I learned this later because we went swimming there. But there's all kinds of interesting stuff on the ground that you can dive down and pick up and look at, like starfish and little crabs and those conchs and stuff. So anyway, we're going to start at Paso Grill Beach and then go to Honeymoon Island State Park. And this is a route that had actually been done by a couple of local swimmers, just kind of an adventure swim unofficial format previously. So I thought it would be nice to do the same route. And I've been able to learn from Polly quite a bit about, sort of the route and some of the hazards we might face along the way in terms of boat traffic and things like that. So I thought that'd be a good route. We did change the start and intended finish kind of at the last minute when we realized that it would take 2.5 hours for the boat to travel from where it's moored in kind of like near John's Pass to Paso Grill Beach. And none of us wanted to do a 2.5 hour boat ride through the intercoastal channel before getting on this like potentially really long swim. And so we just said, you know what, let's just start at John's Pass and we'll just swim to the island further, like just the island north of Honeymoon Island State Park. And so it was just the whole route just kind of shifted up a few miles.
So you did this, what we call a one-way swim, point to point. That is a nice, repeatable route, ratifiable. But as you alluded to before, that wasn't actually your final plan. You wanted to swim for, I'm guessing, close to twice the duration. And so what was your plan if the swim had been able to continue?
Yeah, so the plan was, let's go to Enclote Key. It's the one just, like I mentioned, north of Honeymoon Island. So we were going to like land there, which we would have landed in the night, and then just immediately get back in and turn around and start swimming back down to John's Pass again. And I thought it would probably take about, I don't know, 13, 14 hours to get there, and then 13 or 14 hours to get back. And then, if we still felt like going, then we could just keep going down and Paso Grill and then take the 2.5 hour boat ride back. But we'd kind of play it by ear a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense. And so I'm curious to hear more about this swim format that you've kind of been known for, which is that you don't have a defined finish point in the same sense as a traditional ultra swim, like England to France or Catalina Island to the mainland. You more have like a duration that you're looking to swim, which is 24 hours, or depending on how you're feeling, going for a personal record of more than 29 hours. And so you've done this a few times, right? So your Colorado River swim was like this. You're just going to swim. You had a route plan, and then you wanted to continue swimming until you felt like stopping. And then another swim you did, which didn't finish. You were swimming along the California coast, down off of LA, and you're going to swim for a while, but then you got derailed by unfortunate weather. So was this the third official swim that you've done in this format?
Well, the Traverse Bay swim was like this too. I think most people are like, I really want to have an end goal. Like I want to go from here over to there. And I don't care, however long it takes me, I'm not stopping till I get to there, wherever there is. And when I get there, I'm going to be done. And yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm not saying I would never do another swim like that, because I definitely hope to at some point. But right now I have a very specific kind of philosophy about swimming. Basically, like I don't really train for events. I don't prepare for a certain event or a certain goal. Right now I'm trying to be the best kind of swimmer I can be, and I'm trying to develop myself in ways that I find interesting and satisfying to challenge myself on. And so, when I go off to do a big swim, every single time I do that right now, I'm really just trying to get to a point where I think I can't go anymore, problem solve the issues coming up, keep going, and then do that a whole bunch of times in a row until I've run into a problem I don't know how to solve. And then that kind of tells me where my limiting factors are, and then I can adjust how I'm swimming on a daily basis, and then just keep growing as an athlete instead of having these like very specific outcome goals.
So, having never done a swim in that format before, I find it psychologically fascinating because, like, I mean, I think anybody who's done swims of certain durations, they know that there's these mind games that you start playing with yourself, and like, are you done? Are you really done? Are you sure you're done? Like, or is this just temporary? Like, how much do you actually have left? And I think when you're in the midst of it, it's very hard to know that for sure. And part of developing as an athlete is having better self-awareness about where you actually are in that progression from starting to you've passed your limit and it's time to be done. I don't claim to have that self-awareness yet, even this far into it, and so I think it seems like this swim format would give you lots of opportunities to practice that. But how have you kind of dealt with that on these swims, and do you feel like you have developed that self-awareness better having done these?
So yeah, to on the topic of the self-awareness, I do think this does build a lot of that. To be honest with you, I don't spend a lot of time during these swims thinking, should I keep going? Should I not keep going? Should I keep going? Should I not? Because I always do have some sort of time goal in my mind of like, I'd be really happy with this, but I'd be extra, extra, extra happy with that. And so I always want to get to at least the normal goal, and if I can, get to the reach goal. So I always have that, but most of the time I'm in the water, I'm actually thinking about what do I need to do right now that maximizes the probability of me being able to continue later. So if I get like a little ache or pain, your goggles are leaking or it feels funny, like it hurting you, you don't want to do that for the next 12, 15, 24 hours. Stop, fix it. That maximizes the probability you can continue later. So there is a lot of self-awareness that goes on, but it's all based on what can I do now so that I can continue later on, as opposed to like, should I stop? Should I not stop? Should I stop? It's always, the answer is always continue until you really shouldn't continue anymore, and then you should stop. And it's for me, it's always been really clear. There's been one time I should have stopped and I continued, and there's been one time where I stopped and I should have continued, but every other time I feel like I stopped at the right time.
So you did this swim as a fundraiser for the Save the Manatee Club, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So I really wanted to do a swimathon. So the idea of doing a swimathon came first. And I wanted to do it for something related to wildlife and specifically something local to Florida. At first, I thought maybe I would like to do a fundraiser for coral or seagrass because I like focusing on things that benefit all kinds of different species. But manatees are actually a keystone species. So if something happens to the manatees, the whole ecosystem will collapse. So um, manatees are very important. They're also extremely charismatic and cute. And so, you know, if we can use their cuteness to support the whole entire ecosystem, then they're a great ambassador for their environment in that way. Manatees, they can actually swim pretty fast, and they end up swimming long distances, but they're not like, hey, I need to get from here to there as quickly as possible or anything like that. Mostly they're concerned with eating seagrass and floating, and they do a lot of resting, and they just kind of end up moving long distances. So I really wanted to channel the manatee spirit during this swim at this point in my life because I felt like I needed a break from a more competitive mentality. I see them as kind of a species that just sort of is being like they are out there doing their manatee selves. They're just fully who they are, and in the process helping the entire ecosystem. I found Save the Manatee Club by Googling around and seeing, who was doing what with manatees. And one thing that attracted me to them is they actually have a 5K run that somebody in Michigan started a long time ago. And they recently moved to Florida, and you can do the run virtually, and you can sign up for it now, actually, in case anyone wants to run 5 kilometers or swim 5 kilometers for Save the Manatee Club. But I thought, okay, these guys have supported an athletic event organized by an outside person before. Maybe they won't think I'm crazy. So that's that. And then also when I reached out to them, they were just like so nice to me. So that really helped too.
How does swimming for a cause or a charity change the psychology of a swim compared to just swimming to challenge yourself?
Yeah, so that's a great question because this was my first time doing a fundraiser, and I actually really liked doing the fundraiser a lot. I was really nervous about it because I didn't know if it would be sort of like, you throw a party and no one shows up. Like I thought, like, what if just like my mom and dad are the only donors, and like I thought that would be embarrassing, but so many people were in support of the fundraiser and the manatees specifically. And so I loved how it kind of gave me something else to focus on. I think I get a little bit overwhelmed if all the attention's on me, and in these solo swims all the attention is on you, and I find that really psychologically very overwhelming and challenging. So it was so nice to have something to just pivot to it leading up to the swim, after the swim, just another focus. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, something I really liked about how you did this was you were soliciting support and donations for an organization, but the donations you sent them to the Save the Manatee Club directly. So it was completely transparent that all donations are going to support this cause. That there's not some kind of shenanigans with, oh, just send the money to me and like I promise that I'll send some of it to the organization. And which then is like, oh, well, is this actually like just subsidizing your swim costs? And some people get even more elaborate with it, like they, will set up a 501c3, their own 501c3, which has some nominal cause, and then they're like getting donation, like tax deductible donations, and there's no transparency about how much of that money is actually going to the cause versus subsidizing the swim. But anyway, thank you for doing that. I don't know if you
I mean,
if you have further thoughts on like people swimming for causes.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think there's like two different things. One is not everybody has tons and tons and tons of money to be able to fund these swims themselves. And so I feel incredibly lucky that I can pay for the swim myself. If you don't have enough money to pay for the swim yourself and you want to use like crowdfunding to ask your friends and family for supporting your swim, I think that's actually completely fine. As long as you say, "Hey, friends and family, like can anyone support my swim?" And then your friends and family can say, yeah, here's a donation. I would love to support you doing your swim. And then you use that money to pay for the boat pilot and all of that. But the other thing is fundraising for an organization. And if you're going to fundraise for an organization, say like, hey, donate to Save the Manatee Club, then all of the donations have to go to Save the Manatee Club. You can't like then use the Save the Manatee Club money to pay for your boat because that's stealing from the manatees. Like no one should steal from manatees. They're so cute. You can't do that.
I think we can all agree on this.
It's the manatees. So I think, yeah, like I think it's completely fine for people to solicit money, but just be clear where the money's going, and then people can just decide how they want to donate or not. I think that's fair to everybody.
Sure. So what was the communication like with the Manatee Club? Did they appreciate the infusion of cash? Like, did you find it to be a successful campaign?
I found it very successful. Like I said, I didn't know like if anyone would support a fundraiser that I was doing, and I want to say that I had maybe around 40 different supporters, and the donations ranged huge variety of different amounts. Everybody just gave what they could. Some people actually just shared the fundraiser on social media, and that was actually a great contribution. It was just nice. in terms of like how the Save the Manatee Club respond, they were so nice. They reshared my posts. They asked to be collaborators on the posts. They said thank you like 20 times. But they're just so nice to work with, and they're so friendly and welcoming of anyone. We raised somewhere around the order of a little over $3,000. I don't think that $3,000 is going to change the way their organization functions. I don't have any delusions of grandeur or anything like that, but they were just so appreciative of that. And I don't know, I liked working with them a lot.
Awesome. Okay. Next up, how did you find people to support this swim? The crew and the observers. What was that process like?
So again, with the self-organized swims, you get to choose who's on the boat. All of the people who are on the boat. And so you can really control the energy that you have around you. Like I just wanted it to be where I could be myself. So I just put out some invites to people that had already been on swims before.
So who was the first person who agreed to come?
Yeah, so my friend Sue Phillips, who lives here in Oregon, she lives in a different town, but I've known Sue longer than anyone else in open water swimming, like 15 years or something like that. Sue's a retired wildlife biologist, so she also was really into the idea of helping manatees, and she had been recently on a swim trek, I think, or something, where she had actually seen a manatee while swimming. So she was into it. So I had at that point hired the boat captain, but I knew that he would be new. And so I wanted to have people on board who were experienced with piloting boats. At the same time, Kevin Bell, who normally pilots the Catalina Channel, and Roxanne Hippolito, who just got her captain's license actually, but she's been observing Catalina swims for since I think she said 2012 or 2013. The two of them actually had been both interested in seeing what the English Channel is about. And so when I went to swim the English Channel last year for my backstroke swim, they actually came along with me and were going to be part of the crew and potentially help Stuart Gleason, pilot an English Channel swim. But then I didn't get to swim until the very, very last minute, and they missed the swim because they had a flight that departed halfway through the swim. And so I felt so bad about that. And I thought this could be kind of our makeup opportunity. And it turned out that it just happened to work out with their schedules. Yeah. So then I got Kevin and Roxy to join us.
And you mentioned that you had already hired the boat captain. So who's this boat captain, and where did you find him?
Yeah. So I looked around on the internet for multi-day charters, but I was interested in somebody who would be willing to go out overnight and who had a boat that was set up for that. So um, I found Captain Oleg Ponomoryev, he grew up in Russia. He solo sailed the Black Sea. He was really excited about the idea of doing this endurance project. And I talked with his daughter, Alina, on the phone, and she was also really excited. So they agreed to do the swim. And I was just tickled because I was like, wow, like these people are excited about my swim and they are willing to go on the water for 24 to 36 hours with somebody they don't know and do an activity that they haven't done before. They're both just really, really, really kind people. So that's how I found them.
So given the duration of the swim, was somebody backing up Captain Oleg if he needed to rest?
Yeah, so Alina is also a captain. So the
Oh,
idea was Alina and Oleg could trade off, or Alina could give Oleg a break. I also let them know that I was bringing two very experienced captains that had also done, many Catalina swims before with me, and that they could ask him questions, and that either Kevin or Roxy could give either of them a break too if they needed that to happen.
cool.
But I don't want to leave out Lisa. So Lisa lives in Petoskey, Michigan, but she lived in Texas for a while and had been part of the whole group that swims down there, like Lauren Canova Grouse and Patty from Scar and Carrie Yanashunis, and just a bunch of people we know in the marathon swimming community. She moved back to Petoskey, but I thought of her because she had been on my Traverse Bay swim and she was just delightful to have around. She's like the most positive person. It's like every time you have that flagging low self-esteem, and then she just has like a compliment to give you. She's like, "You look great. Like you're an amazing swimmer." You're like, "I am?" Oh my gosh, okay. I'll just keep swimming then. And so I thought of Lisa, and I also thought this will be perfect because she'll want to get out of the snow because it was still snowing where she lives by the time we had the swim. So yeah, so it was a really solid crew, like really great people.
Okay, so you've got this awesome crew. Got everybody came into town to help you out. Everybody's together on the same day. How did it go?
I thought it went great personally. It was a little short, but I thought it was awesome. I don't know, I was on cloud 9. I almost am embarrassed by how happy I was. Like looking back on it, I was thinking about it today during my swim. I was like, should I be embarrassed? like like um how enthusiastic I was. But the water being in the 70s is just such a treat for when you're used to 60s, low 60s. It just, I don't know, you can really relax. You don't have to manage the mental chatter about whether you're cold or not, and you're not cold, and don't think about being cold. And if you're cold now, are you going to be cold later? You just, none of that. It's just sheer pleasure. I also make a point of enjoying myself as much as I can during the beginning of a swim because I figure I can be miserable later and I might as well be as happy as I can for as long as I can. So it's really kind of like over the top on that. It was singing songs like at the top of my lungs doing backstrokes so like everyone could hear me. It was think about it, I made up lyrics related to manatees for Froggy Went a Courtin'. Instead of Froggy Went a Courtin', it was Manatee Went a Courtin', and all these things happened. And I made up a limerick that was really inappropriate, and that was funny. I had to stop swimming to laugh. So yeah, that was that was fun.
So this you started the swim at about 9 or 10 a.m. So 9 a.m. something like that,
Yeah, I think it might have been around 9:30, something like 9:30 maybe,
and then you swam through
somewhere
the
there.
day and into the sunset, and then so what happened once it was dark and night?
Yeah, so boat had so the boat was navigating by depth around sandbars, so that was a complicating factor. And so from my perspective, it looked like the boat had been going north and then did a 180 and was headed south. And I did not understand that. I was like, I don't know where they're going. I was starting to panic a little bit. And then I was like, well, I think we should just swim back to the boat. So we turned around and started swimming like maybe like I'm going to say we were swimming southwest so we could swim back south to where the boat was, but also west. So we're swimming toward the boat. And then as we're going along, I'm like, okay, I need to have a little discussion in a calm tone with my crew and figure out how do we prevent this from happening because I don't really want to do this all night long. And I calmed myself down and I was like, you're fine. Everything's literally fine. But like communication is good. So Sue signals me to stop and I pop my head up and I'm ready to say, okay, guys, so what's going on? I look up in front of me and the swim ladder's down and we're at the stern of the boat. And Sue goes, get on the boat. There's a shark. I was like, wait, what? And she's like, the shark shields aren't working and there's a shark and you have to get on the boat right now. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're getting on the boat. So I sprint toward the ladder, which was at that point, like maybe like, to the flags, like 5 meters away. And I get there and Kevin and Roxy are standing up there and he goes, stop. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you guys are going to need to tell me what the bleep is going on right now. And Roxy was there, outstanding communicator, very calm in a crisis. She goes, okay, look, there was a shark swimming around at the back of the boat. It was 10 minutes ago, and it went under the boat. We've been looking for it with our lights, and we have not seen it since then. And the shark shield was on when the shark was here. What do you want to do? And I was like, oh, well, what kind of shark was it? Because I wasn't going to get out of the water for a leopard shark or a basking shark or some other type of shark that doesn't like to bite people that much. So they were like, "Oh, I don't know. Um, we don't really know what type it was." Later on, Kevin was like, "It was one with teeth." So Kevin and Roxy had had a shark bite a swimmer in two different places on a swim in the Catalina Channel last fall. And so they were kind of like, this is very much still in their mind. And they said that shark was smaller than the one that they saw on my swim. And Roxy was like, well, we just had a small shark really tear this guy up. So,
Yeah, he was in the hospital, right?
yeah, he went to the hospital, and that's a whole other story that's not mine to tell. Um, but in any case, my point is a shark bite of any kind can be a big deal. I was in a weird spot because I'd been really panicking, thinking the shark was like right underneath me, and so I was like all worked up about that. But then as soon as I found out there wasn't one right there, right then, at least that we knew of, no one had seen it for 10 minutes, I really calmed down. And then all I wanted to do was keep swimming. And it was like I really had a hard time mentally, like getting my head around that. I just really did not want to get on the boat. And so I sat there and treaded water and tried to see if we could come up with a solution to the shark shield issue, because I would have been fine with swimming. I knew there were sharks in there. I mean, there's always sharks in the ocean, but I just felt comfortable swimming there anyway with these shark shields on the kayak. So there was some problem solving that went on there.
What are the typical species that they see around there?
Yeah, so bull sharks, I think tiger
Mm.
sharks too, but the bull sharks are very
Yeah,
common
that's
in
not
that
good.
area.
That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there are some great whites sort of out maybe further around. People have been seeing them lately, but that's not really what they deal with typically. They also have hammerheads that come in around this time of year, but hammerheads aren't very bitey on people, so I wasn't really worried about them. I was mainly worried about the bull sharks, and we were alternating between speculating what it was and discouraging one another for speculating what it was.
No, the bull sharks are bad. I think I'd rather be in the water with a white shark than a bull shark, honestly.
100%, because the bull sharks like to just bite things.
Yeah.
They're interested in biting, and then it was shallow water. They like the shallow water. After the swim, I had 3 different swimmers all tell me that they've seen sharks there and nowhere else in that hurricane pass between Caladesi Island and Honeymoon Island State Park. Like, for some reason, they just really love that area. And
That's too bad you
yeah.
didn't learn about that before you planned the route, right? That would have been useful
Why
information.
why didn't you guys tell me? But I made a new friend in the context of the swim, Sarah. Sorry, Sarah, I don't know how to say your last name, but I believe it's Swatch. And Sarah's awesome. The whole crew decided that they want to be best friends with Sarah now. But anyway, we hung out with Sarah a bunch, and Sarah is a local swimmer who is very interested in sharks and shark behaviors and things. So we learned a lot about different, sharky things later on.
Okay, so the crew's gotten your attention. They've told you a shark is in the water, and I can't even imagine the adrenaline that's running through you at that point. But you come into the boat, and Kevin stops you before you touch, so you don't DQ yourself quite yet. Then, so the shark was 10 minutes ago, and now you have to decide what to do now, and the shark shields aren't working. So what happened then?
Yeah, so I mean, the thoughts that went through my head was, well, one of my friends saw a white shark on her swim, and she kept swimming. And then I had another thought: people in Australia swim with sharks all the time. Uh, then I had another thought. I promised Dan, my partner, I promised Dan that I would get out of the water if anything like this ever happened. And even if I swim all night and nothing happens, he's probably going to divorce me anyway, so that's not going to work out for me. So I probably don't want to do that. And then I was like, God, I really don't want to get out of the freaking water. So this went on for a little while, and then I realized I was starting to shiver a little bit, even though the water was really warm, and that I was literally treading water at the back of the boat where the shark like to hang out. I think sharks like to hang out at the back of boats because people throw their fish guts over the side. And I thought, you know what, I should just start swimming, and I can think about this while I'm swimming. So I start swimming, And it actually only took a half an hour to get there, but the whole time I was thinking, okay, what can we do? Like, should I stop? Should I continue? And my idea was I'll touch land. And then if I think of something I can do, we can turn around and just swim back and start swimming back anyway. And it would sort of do something similar to our original plan, but I just got to think of something. So I spent the whole half an hour trying to problem solve it. I just couldn't think of anything. So then I got back to the boat after I touched land, and it was the most anticlimactic finish. So we went back to the boat, and I get back there and I'm like, do I really have to get on the boat? I'm like, are we really doing this? And Kevin was the one who he was like, you know what? I'm really uncomfortable. And for some reason that just really helped. I don't think Kevin is like the least over dramatic person ever. He's just a very level-headed, great in a crisis person. And if he's saying he's a dive boat charter, right? So when he's not helping swimmers cross Catalina, he's taking people out on dives. So I don't think this guy's overly dramatic about sharks or anything. So when he said that, I was just like, I'm going to go with his gut here, and that was all I needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. Someone you trust, and like Kevin, who has as much experience as he does. I don't think you want to be continuing on thinking, oh, Kevin's not. The crew is not comfortable with this situation. But that it's an interesting point because it's actually when you cleared the water on the beach and then came back out, the swim was not over yet at that point. There was a chance, depending on how that conversation went, that you could have kept going at that point. So, so actually the swim didn't, I mean, in retrospect, it finished when you cleared the water on the beach, but actually you went back out to the boat. At that point, the clock is still
The clock
running.
was still running. Yeah. And I was very much still in problem solving. How do I continue mode?
Yeah.
Which made me realize how much of the mindset is about how do I continue? What do I do now that maximizes probably I can continue later? All day long you're thinking that. And so it's very hard to pivot to, oh, I guess I should just get out, especially when you're feeling great. Like if I'm feeling bad, I would have gotten out and just be like, I'm not feeling good anyway, but I was feeling really good. So
But I think the swim ended before you wanted it to, and clearly you were capable of going a lot further. But I think the way you've described this is very much true to your vision of this swim format. I mean, you started this by saying, I keep problem solving all day until I find something I can't problem solve anymore. And that's ultimately what happened. You ran into a situation where there's a shark of some size in the water with you in the middle of the night, and your shark shields aren't working. There's not much you can do about that at that point, right? So
I mean, yes, but also some people keep swimming. And I think that was the hang up for me, is I was trying to decide, like, is this a moment to be courageous? Because people swim with sharks all the time without shark shields. And sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't. In retrospect, I didn't think of this at the time, but in retrospect, to me, the difference is that if a shark's showing interest in what humans are doing, like coming up it was right up at the back of the boat, like the stern, swimming around, looking for a handout. I just think that's a different type of shark behavior.
is it worth running through with your crew ahead of time when you're swimming in an area where these encounters are possible, running through different scenarios? The type of shark, the type of behavior that you're seeing, the time of day, and just going through, this is what I want to do in this situation, and have everybody kind of on the same page about what the decision is given the scenario.
I think so. That's something I plan to have in the future, like just a shark protocol.
I mean, it's hard to imagine every scenario, but I think if you run through a few of them, it gives you a sense of how to adjust based on what's actually happening.
Yeah, like let's just say, we're doing a Catalina, and let's say I managed to replace my shark shields. We're doing a Catalina. someone sees a white shark 50 meters away, and then they see it swim off. In a situation like that, I would like my crew to say, hey, we just did see a shark. So why don't you make sure that you're swimming near the kayak in the zone of where the shark shield is covered, and I would be completely fine with that. Now if the shark is swimming over and then it gets close and then turns when it hits the shark shield area, that would be a get out, because in our research studies that they have testing these things, the white sharks will eventually take seal bait even when the shark shield is on. They will always take it immediately when it's off. When it's on, they do, I think it might be 10 to 12 passes, and eventually they'll take the seal bait. So it's not like it doesn't make it impossible for a shark to enter the field. It just makes it an obnoxious experience for the shark. So depending on how the shark is responding to your presence, I would think that would make a difference in the decision.
I mean, I think usually they're not interested, but I think you have to watch very carefully how they are behaviorally inclined and adjust from there.
There's a guy that I know a lot of swimmers follow, the Malibu Artist is his name on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a great channel.
Yeah. There's drone footage of sharks, white sharks along the Southern California coast, often coming quite close to humans right there in these are juvenile white sharks that come close into shore, and unbeknownst to people, they're totally uninterested in people. They're just not all that interested in us. I do think the bull sharks are a little different, personally.
So your swim ended early. You motored back to shore, got a little more sleep than you were anticipating, probably, and then you got to spend a couple days in the area afterwards, enjoying Florida. What do you think? Do you want to come back? What are your thoughts on this region after your few days there?
Yes, I was very pleasantly surprised. I hadn't been to Florida in many years. I definitely want to go back. The people that I met, the marathon swimming community down there, the people were so nice. And there were several different groups. There was an article in the St. Pete Catalyst about the swim, and then a friend of the author is an open water swimmer, and she and her friends actually came out to the start of the swim. So they were there, and that was really, I kind of waved at them. It was a special kind of thing. And then we had Sarah and Polly and I went on a swim the next day after the swim for a couple hours. And, I'd be swimming next to Sarah, and she's swimming and like watching her, following her and stuff. And then all of a sudden she'd disappear, and she'd dive down and pop up with like a starfish or something. And we're like, look at this. And she's so happy. So it was just really, it was a really neat place to be, and a neat group of people. And so, yeah, I mean, and plus, it's like I said, it's a great way to swim early in the season in warm water. So, yeah, I would totally just do it again.
And then just speaking of the community there, maybe a brief shout out to Isaac Vernon, who recently completed the original Tampa Bay Marathon swim course as a solo swim. And then, here's the twist, he ran back to the start, which is just really an astonishing feat of endurance. So, Isaac, if you're out there, congratulations, man. You're awesome.
That was so fun to watch that. So it was like a 30-mile course to run back. I think it took him like over 21 hours. And I mean, that's what I mean, though. It's just kind of like this cool, creative, like, hey, I want to challenge myself in this type of way. And then you can just go do that. There wasn't like an event that this was part of. It was just Isaac's self-created personal challenge. And I just find that type of thing really inspiring.
Well, thank you, Jess, for sharing your experience and your insights of this swim in Florida. And I think it's a great way to kick off this open water marathon swimming season that's about to happen in North America. And hope everyone is inspired to become better swimmers and better people.